They say if you survived New York in the 70s, you can survive anywhere. Today, Manhattan shines with glass and money, but those of us who were there 50 years ago remember a different city. It was a city where a subway ride cost 35 cents and graffiti covered every inch. It was called Fear City. But for us, it was something more. It was wild, dangerous, dirty, and incredibly alive. New York was literally falling apart. The fiscal crisis of 1975 brought the city to its knees. Garbage piled up on the sidewalks, mountains of black bags right next to luxury avenues. But in this decay, there was a dark beauty. Rents were cheap. Artists turned abandoned factories in Soho into palaces. The city belonged to the people, not the corporations. The subway was the city's circulatory system, but back then it felt like a descent into the underworld. No air conditioning. In the summer, the platforms hit 100 degrees. Graffiti wasn't just vandalism, it was a scream that said, "We are here." Do you remember that smell? Steel, ozone, and old dust. And that feeling when you stepped into an empty car late at night, hoping you weren't alone. The summer of 1977. The heat was melting the asphalt. We looked over our shoulders, fearing the Son of Sam. And then, on July 13th, the lights went out. The blackout of 77 was chaos. Looting, fires, sirens wailing in the dark. It felt like the city was hitting rock bottom. But rock bottom is where you find your strength. While politicians argued, history was being made. Uptown at Studio 54, it was the glamour of disco. Downtown at CBGB, punks like the Ramones screamed their truth. Do you remember the automat? Putting a few coins in a slot to get a slice of cherry pie behind a little glass door, or using a payphone that actually cost 10 cents. It was gritty, yes, but it was real. Summer in the city was a different beast. Air conditioning was a luxury not everyone had. So we improvised. We opened the fire hydrants. Johnny Pumps, we called them. The water pressure was strong enough to knock you over, but it was the best feeling in the world. We played stickball in the middle of the street, using a broom handle and a Spalding ball. If a car came, you yelled, "Freeze!" and the game paused. It was a kingdom of asphalt, and we were the rulers.
And then there was the Deuce, 42nd Street. Before it became a family-friendly tourist trap, it was the grittiest place on earth. Movie marquees advertised kung fu flicks and adult films side by side. It was neon, noise, and hustle. It was Sadie, sure, but it had a pulse that you could feel through the soles of your shoes. You walked fast, you kept your head down, but you saw everything.
In 1977, the city needed a hero. We found him in the Bronx. The Yankees were back. They called the stadium the Bronx Zoo, and Reggie Jackson was the king. When they won the World Series that October, the city exploded, not in anger, but in joy. For a moment, we weren't the broken city. We were the champions. That win gave us hope when we needed it most.
You couldn't miss them. The Checker Marathons. They weren't just taxis. They were tanks painted yellow. The back seat was so big you could practically live in it. There was no Uber app. You stood on the curb, raised your hand, and whistled. The drivers had stories that could fill a library. The partition was bulletproof, the seats were vinyl, and the meter ticked with a sound that marked the rhythm of the city.
And looming over it all were the twins. The World Trade Center was finished in '73. At first, many of us hated them. We thought they were too big, too cold, two boxes of steel. But they became our North Star. No matter where you were in the boroughs, if you could see the towers, you knew where South was. Looking back at photos of them standing tall amidst the grit of the '70s, it breaks your heart a little. They were the future, rising from the chaos. Today, New York is safe, and that's good. But sometimes passing a sterile bank that used to be a legendary club, we feel a pinch of sadness. We don't miss the crime. We miss the energy. 1970s New York was a harsh teacher, but it taught us one thing. If you don't break here, you turn into steel. Thank you for walking these streets with me again.